By the time Parth Patil met Reid Hoffman, he had already spent a year hacking alone in his Los Angeles apartment. A Bay Area native and the child of two software engineers, Parth had built a successful career as a data scientist. But when ChatGPT came out, he watched tasks that used to take him days get done in seconds. And in an instant, everything he thought he knew about work, intelligence, even his own job, was upended. At that moment, the rest of the world was just beginning to hum and haw about what all this AI stuff would mean. But not Parth. Instead, he did something that most of us never will. He liquidated his 401k, walked away from a steady paycheck, and stepped into self-imposed isolation. For 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, he worked alone in silence, trying to answer one question, which was, how far can this tech really go? For a full year, he built in the dark. Before anyone was talking about agents, he was building them. Before the word vibecoding was even a term, he was inventing the practice. All the while with no press and no funding. Just pure obsession. Then one day, a mutual friend introduced Parth to Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn and one of the most influential minds in Silicon Valley. What was supposed to be a very simple meet and greet ended up turning into a 5-hour conversation between Parth and Reid about the future of AI. And when it finally ended, Reid turned to his chief of staff and said, "Do whatever it takes to get Parth on our team." In today's video, we find out what Reid and Parth talked about in those 5 hours. What compelled Reid to hire Parth as his AI expert on the spot. We hear firsthand from Parth what he saw before the rest of the world did. What drove him to walk away from stability. Why he believes playing with AI is more important than working with it. And why he says even our wildest dreams are not big enough for a future with AI. Before we continue, I'm pleased to present today's interview with no sponsors and no ad breaks. So if you haven't already, please like and subscribe this baby growing YouTube channel. And with that, enjoy the show. Hey guys, how's it going? It's Catherine from CatGPT, and today I'm joined by my friend Parth Patil, who is basically the resident AI expert that works directly with Reid Hoffman, who's one of the co-founders of LinkedIn. Parth, thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks, Kat. Yeah, this is gonna be fun.
Parth, in case you weren't aware, you are kind of an anomaly. I remember when we first met, like one of the ways that you described yourself is being red-pilled. That's a term that you coined, not me, and obviously it's a nod to the Matrix, but would love to hear in your own words, what does being red-pilled mean to you, and how did you become red-pilled?
Everyone has a moment when they're interacting with AI. It happens at different moments. I think for Kasparov, it was when he played Deep Blue, where he was like, he could see flashes of a program that was operating at his level or potentially beyond. And for me, that was at my last job. I was a data analyst, data scientist, and ChatGPT came out around then. And I'm watching a language model do this, 100 times faster than me, and like with answers that I don't even have. It's able to reach into parts of like the software stack that I've never had exposure to.
Yeah.
Well, so that night I had an anxiety attack.
Okay, valid.
Because I was kind of like,
so valid.
I was like, yeah, and I was like, yo, I thought I was pretty good at this thing. Like this whole data, I thought this was my career. This is the thing that I'm really good at, data analysis. And so I woke up in the middle of the night. I was kind of like, what am I going to do about this? Next day, I sit down and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to replace myself. And what does that mean? So I sit down and I'm like, okay, let's build a bot that can use, ChatGPT and talk to a database. And just talking to ChatGPT, it showed me how to go from like natural language to SQL. It showed me how to make the API calls, and I had it working on my computer. Actually, that wasn't even the first problem I asked it. The first thing I asked ChatGPT was, teach me how to clone my voice. And it wrote the first version of that program. And then I was like, teach me how to run this program. And then it showed me how to set up my computer.
And wait, this is really important because you were not a programmer.
Yeah, not in any. I was a data analyst, so we
Right.
use SQL and Python to do work, but it's not the same as building entire applications. That's like a couple more programming languages. And my buddy was like, Parth, you should be talking to GPT-4, the Echo Hive. He was like, you should be talking to GPT-4 and have it teach you programming, because this thing is better than most of the programmers we know.
And this is when you were using it to just like clone your voice. Like this is
Yeah.
after you have the panic attack and
Yeah,
you're like,
the
oh
first
my
thing was
God.
like clone my voice, and then it writes the program. And I'm like, this is supposed to take 6 data scientists a year. And now, because the language model has already studied all the existing code, like you can, if someone else has done it and then the language model has been trained on that data set, you can basically reach into that capability even though you didn't invent it.
Yeah.
So you're able to like get these Lego blocks from across of all of what humans have worked on that's general knowledge, right? So like the model has studied everything humans, like a lot of what humans have worked on.
Yeah.
So when you ask for something, you're probably not the first person to do that thing. And there might already be a solution inside the model for that thing. So you can basically ask for the model to reverse engineer things that are possible. And so that was voice cloning. And then, and it only took me 2 hours, and I was kind of just like, okay, like this is kind of a cheat code.
Like that was too easy.
Yeah. So the second prompt, the second question I asked ChatGPT that day after teach me how to clone my voice, the second thing was, teach me how to build a GPT-powered chatbot. And it wrote the first version of that program. And then I got it running. And there's a video on my Instagram of the first time I made that call. So you can see me. It's like, what are you? And it replies, it's like, I am a large language model developed by OpenAI. And it was running on it's like 20 lines of code. See, when you have GPT, you can make things much more easily, including chatbots like ChatGPT.
Right. It's so meta.
It's so meta, right? Yeah. It's like sticks and stones aren't going to tell you how to make fire. Right? But this is intelligence, right?
Oh, say that one more time. That hit.
Like sticks and stones aren't going to tell you how to make fire.
But
intelligence is entirely different. You can just ask for things.
Come on. That's insane, dude. When you put it like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I keep bringing you back to this moment because I want to like imagine being there with you in this moment. Yeah. This is like, it's happening. You're getting red pilled. You're in the Clubhouse group. You're with the Python guys and you're like, oh my God.
Another way to say it is like, it's like, this is feeling the AGI is like what other people might say. When I showed these capabilities to my manager at my job, we were just looking at these programs. Like, I just tell it to work on it. And then I go sit by the pool for a few hours. And then I come back and I'm here like, whoa, I didn't know you could even do that.
Yeah.
So like language models are showing me what's possible outside of what I've been personally exposed to in the projects I've worked on in my life.
Right.
And he was just like, oh, okay, this must be an AGI paradigm. And I hadn't heard AGI outside of science fiction. And I was kind of just like, are you serious? Oh. And then it's like, oh, this is 100 years early.
I remember when we first met, one of the things that you told me in kind of this path, we were talking more about kind of like how you went from data science into this red pill moment into like the next step that you made. And one of the things that you told me is you sold off your 401k and you sold out your crypto.
Yeah.
Because you would realize that you needed to exist outside of the economy. Bridge those two for me. Tell me what it actually means in practice to exist outside of the economy. And why did you feel like that was necessary?
Yeah. Okay, I don't recommend this to everyone. And honestly, after I say it, some of my friends that are smarter than me are like, dude, you didn't have to. You could have like taken a loan.
Extreme.
You could have like moved back home. You could have done that. But basically, okay, so I was working at Clubhouse, and that's when I discovered the models and how powerful they were. But then we had layoffs, and I was kind of like the day I got laid off, I was laying there in bed looking at the scene. I was like, wait, this is great. Now I'm not moonlighting this. Now I get to do this like every day with every single ounce of like my waking energy. Yeah. Like, so I was like, okay, what am I gonna do tomorrow? I'm gonna wake up, brush my teeth, order coffee, sit down, and then talk to the language model and figure out how to make it useful. But if you do that, and I didn't have a job, right? So I was kind of like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this every day, Saturday, Sunday as well.
And were you like, I'm just going to do this while I like look for a job and I'll still find a job, but like, I just want to do this while I have the time? Or...
So we had severance. It was pretty generous.
Okay.
I had like 4 months of severance.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, I will at least do this for 4 months.
Okay.
And I figured 4 months doing this every single day, that's like, it's like 120 days, right? Like at the end of that, like it's like a 100-day sprint. You're going to sit there, you're going to sit down, you're going to just like ask the dumb question. That's the other thing. Is like you get to ask dumb questions. No, it's never going to judge you, right? So I'm like, okay, I don't know how Git works. Teach me.
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, maybe I might be ashamed to ask that of my super smart engineering roommates from back in the day.
Totally.
But language model doesn't judge you. It actually just tells you how the world works. And so you should ask a lot of dumb questions. And
preach.
I figured 120 days. I was like, okay, at the end of 120 days, I'll probably have a clearer picture of like where this tech is going and how to use it.
Do you think you would have had the courage to take the leap if you hadn't gotten laid off?
No. And because I did that, like 8 months later, one of my best friends from college, Saad, he called me. He's like, Parth, I realized in his case, he's like, I realized you just can't moonlight this. So I'm quitting my job.
Shut up.
Yeah. And now he works at Anthropic. He realized like working on this after work wasn't enough for him because he was starting to get more, he was drawn into this as a passion. And then, a year later, now he works at a frontier lab. I mean, after I ran out of severance, so I was like, okay, that was 4 months in. Then I was like, yo, I'm not really done.
Had you applied for any jobs at that point? Okay.
No, because I would talk to people that I talk to CFOs, CEOs, and I'm like, you could you could do this thing, and like all of a sudden that whole like your entire data set, like now you have semantic meaning. You understand who the customer is because language models can interpret that. Like it's not just how many customers you have. It's like, oh, this one's a small business. This is a vegan restaurant. Like there's so much more nuance.
Sure. Yeah.
But they couldn't see that, and so I was like, if I work for you, then I'm not going to get to think like this. Then I'm not going to get better at thinking like this. Then I shouldn't work for you, because actually I think you're going to agree with me 6 months from now anyways. And that has continued to play out. Almost every day I get a text and like, oh dude, you were right. It was at the end of those 4 months that a lot of my friends, people I used to work with, like the data analysts, all the data people in my life, I had already told them, and we've been talking about this. And like people I used to work with, Olivia Chen, I used to work with her at Clubhouse, and she ended up working at Replit and then building Replit into an agent. But because I was working with her at Clubhouse, we saw the power of the language models, and we would text each other and be like, isn't it obvious that this is going to change all of data analytics, data engineering? All of that is actually well within the realm of the AI powered data analyst is going to be 1,000 times more useful than like a normal data analyst.
Right.
And so I would get these texts, we would have these conversations, because I'd go to the mirror and I'd just be like, are you going insane? Like this, no one in the real world is just like really figuring this out except for a few people. But then my friends were just like, I think what you're doing is better than the way we do things in the real world anyways. Like this is better than the way I do my job. So you should keep pulling, turn over some of these cards.
Well, and hold on, I'm just going to stop you right there for a second, because most people would be like, I just ran out of severance.
Yeah.
How am I making money next month? Like, were you scared? What I'm trying to get inside your calculus here of life planning.
Yeah. Well, this is the gamble is like I'm making is like either a year from now I have no money and I know how this tech works, and then I'll be able to go join teams and deploy this tech. Or, worst case, like maybe it's not the future and maybe it was a complete waste of time. And then my friends will just hire me anyways.
Period.
You could have zero cash.
Yeah.
But if you have your network, right? Like your network is your net worth, right? Like how can you possibly go to zero if you know a bunch of people and they're like, working hard in their own careers and they're learning? Like worst case, you're just going to ask them for help, and then like someone might help you. You're not actually alone. So all that was like how I justify it. Also, I have 2 cats, so I would go to the cats and be like, the boys ain't gonna starve. Like trust, right? The boys ain't gonna starve. Like the boys are gonna have wet food once again. And so you come up with these like mantras, right?
Daddy's gonna take care of you.
Yeah, you come up with these mantras because you're like, most people can't understand this, and I have a few.
Did you feel like so alone? I mean, everyone's looking at you like you're wrong. This is crazy, whatever, and you're like, I really think.
Most people would think that, but I only care about a few people's opinions, anyways.
Whose opinions do you care about?
The people I've worked with that understand me.
Okay.
Like they understand my obsession. Like I have an obsessive personality. Mm-hmm. So like they understand my quirks. And then some like the people that are smarter than me that I always ask for advice, right? They might not be in the same like risk-taking mindset as me. Mm-hmm. But when I'm like, hey, I think this is the future of analytics. I think this is the future of software engineering. Even though it's like kind of jank and it's like very early stages, but it's obvious that I would rather speak to the computer in English and have it start working than for me to like try to do every single thing by hand the old way. And those people would be like, no, you're right. That's leverage. Like this looks like it's more leverage than that, than the way we currently do things. So if the people smarter than me are like, no, you should keep, turning some of these cards over, then it doesn't feel like a gamble. Like, like watching the net worth number go down is just kind of insane. But like, I spent a month just talking to language models about music. And I knew I wasn't going to make money that month. And it was like, one of my friends was like, Parth, just pick up some coins along the way, man. And I was like, no, I just don't think it's time yet, because I'm over here asking it. I'm like, teach me about this knob on my like digital audio workstation. It's breaking down. It can go very deep into every concept in all of like music production. Yeah. And and I always thought that like, what was holding me back from learning programming? What was holding me back from learning music production? Because I don't have someone better than me sitting next to me that I can just ask dumb questions to. And it's like, if you use it for your job only, you're missing all of the things you could be using it for that are like more important to you. I'm not going to tell you what to do other than you should aim this at things that you're very passionate about, because things that you didn't think you had time for. So I was like, oh, what if I wanted to make a game? Well, I got to go get a degree. No, that's definitely not going to happen. like start a different career. Like, no, now you get to reach into all these skill sets that would have otherwise taken other lifetimes.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
don't you think that for somebody to take your advice and do that, they're clocking out of their 9 to 5, they're exhausted. Now they got to take this LLM thing and point it at something that they're deeply passionate about.
Yeah.
How many people have you found are actually that curious and that excited about learning that they take that advice and do it? Because this is what I mean when I say you're an anomaly, and I mean it in nothing but the best of ways.
Yeah.
Is you follow your curiosity off of a cliff.
Yeah.
Literally. I mean, we're talking about you being like, I'm going to watch my net worth go to 0 if that's what it takes for me to like learn everything I possibly can using this tool. Most people don't have that risk appetite, but to your point, they could still learn a little bit along the way. Do you think that people are doing that? Like, and would you agree that it's not just enough to say, this is what you should do. It also requires that inherent ingredient of the insatiable curiosity from the person on the other side of that conversation.
Yeah, you're right. It's not most people. Like the reason I say play with it is because when you're when you do something that's like you're intrinsically motivated by, no one has to tell you to do it, and like if you don't have to drag yourself out of bed to do it, you actually like you get to like if it's your passion, if then it feels fun, right? Then sitting in front of a computer for 14 hours a day, which I don't also is probably not recommended for everyone, but it doesn't feel like a slog.
Yeah.
It's more like, oh, I don't actually have enough time in the day
Yeah.
for everything that I now want to do
Yeah.
because now I have superpowers.
That's just it for me. It's superpowers. I was thinking about this the other day. When I was in high school, I was a language nerd. I took Spanish, French, Chinese, and I was teaching myself Portuguese on the side. I just loved it. And I remember at one point talking about it with my parents who only speak English. And I explained it to them as like, I feel like when I learn a new language, I unlock a superpower.
Yeah.
I literally, this is not a metaphor. I literally feel like someone who can fly because I now can have conversations with, build relationships with, fall in love with 300 million additional people that I couldn't have done it with before.
Yeah, and you like understand their culture way more richly.
Dude, it's insane. Yeah. And then with AI, since falling in love with learning languages, this is the only other time I felt that similar, like, I feel like I have effing superpowers.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I felt when I saw this thing writing better code than me. I was like, wow, now I'm not limited by everything that I've ever worked on. I'm limited by the question I ask.
Yeah, you're not limited by your intelligence.
Yeah.
You're limited by the AI's intelligence.
Yeah, which is like the collective intelligence.
Right.
Right. And you just have to wield it, bring it out of the AI into the real world. And that's superpowers. It's cognitive superpowers.
You work for Reid Hoffman, who's the founder of LinkedIn.
Yep.
How did you meet Reid, and why did Reid hire you?
This is like a year into me exploring AI independently. I met Ben Rellis, who works for Reid, and we were working out of a beach house in Playa del Rey. And when custom GPTs came out, he goes over to me. He's like, "Hey, do you know how to like, maybe build one on top of a personality of someone that has a lot of writing and thought work, like thought leadership?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." So I built a custom GPT on top of Reid's corpus of work, scraped all his books. No, I got actual access to his books.
Nice save.
Scraped the podcast though. And I created this like chatbot that could conversationally retrieve parts of his corpus of thinking and all of his like writing over the last 20 years. And he's like a legend within Silicon Valley. So that ends up being a huge, very interesting chatbot when you talk to this chatbot and it's like, pretend to be Reid. Also, here's a bunch of things that he's said over the last 20 years about technology, entrepreneurship. And then one day I was invited, like Ben was like, "Oh, you should come up to the Bay Area." And I went up to the Bay Area and I got to meet Reid. And he was like, "You should come back tomorrow. We'll go deep on this topic." And so I went back the next day and we talked for 5 hours about AI, language models, basically this conversation right here, but like drawn out for 5 hours. Yeah, actually pretty much this conversation, but for over 5 hours, and exploring like, okay, here's where I'm seeing, and this is a year and a half, like this is a year and two months ago.
Okay.
So a lot of the things I was kind of saying are playing out actually played out in the last year. And he's an early investor in OpenAI. So for him to like, he was probably the first conversation I had where I was like, oh, I'm not insane. Like this is actually what's happening to like the world of computing.
How did that feel? I mean, you're sitting in the presence of a Silicon Valley legend who is making you feel maybe for the first time that you're not insane. And not only does he want to chat with you, he's picking your brain for 5 hours.
Yeah.
What did you feel like in that moment?
I mean, it was a super fun conversation about like, if you can do this, then you can do that. Like, here's what what does that mean for like this entire like business vertical? What does it mean for that like entertainment? What does it mean for like, and so the questions, all of a sudden it's like, I was like, oh, these are the right questions. Like finally, like we can have this like conversation about the implications of like this on knowledge work, which are huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very, I mean, I think like it was after we finished talking, I was like it clicked to me. I was like, man, like I've totally listened to Masters of Scale. Like I listened to his podcast, Masters of Scale, growing up, and it's how I got into startup. Yeah. So, I've been following his work since I was probably like 15, like 12, Silicon Valley. It's like, PayPal. It's like even before OpenAI,
PayPal Mafia.
Yeah, it's PayPal Mafia, right? So it was crazy. And then he was like, we should work together. I said yes. And the last year and 2 months I've been working with Reid. A lot of different special projects, mostly like getting to do the same thing, but like without being completely alone is pretty key.
This one's a curveball. You don't have to answer it if you want to, but I'm curious. Yeah. You have a very specific image of where we're headed in the future.
Yeah.
How does that affect dating?
Dude, I gotta not talk about AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very hard. It's very hard. And then I'll be on a date and she'll be like, can you just like not talk about this?
No way. She'll ask you to shut up.
Yeah, well, a girl once told me that, like literally last month, and I was like, the whole date in my mind, it's like, okay, I'm not saying anything, but my mind is thinking about it. Then I just didn't speak for like 20 minutes. I'm like, it's like, wow, did I really become like that? Oh my God. I mean, it's a wake up call for sure. And I'm just like, I can't date this girl. Like, was what I realized. Yeah. Because it's like, okay, I got to turn my brain off. It's like, I don't have to. I mean, I might meet someone that actually, like, she might actually be on my, like I can, it just means that I'm not interested in dating every girl. That doesn't make any sense. But like the right one, I'll meet her. It's a wake up call.
No, but I think it's cool. I mean, if you have something that you're that passionate about, that it's like every conversation you want to be like, because your light starts to shine, right? When you get to like talk about the thing that really lights you up, literally.
Yeah.
As you know, in the tech world, it's a very common question to ask someone, oh, so are you technical? Especially if, let's say you're meeting like someone who's founding a company and you want to get a sense of if they're a technical or a non-technical co-founder.
Yeah.
And historically, that question has essentially meant, do you write code?
Yeah.
Right? Now, in 2025, what do you think qualifies someone to answer that question? Are you technical with yes?
I don't even think that's the right question. Okay. Like, are you technical? I mean, I know plenty of technical people that have zero skills in prompt engineering, and I worry for them because like the person that understands how to ask the right question of the model. Like in my case, I'm self-taught. Even data science, I was self-taught. I learned SQL and Python myself over a couple weekends when I was on the job and I needed to. Then I self-taught language models, at least the application. I can't build you a language model from scratch. I'm not an ML researcher. But if you have GPT-4 as an API, I can reimagine software through the lens of like these capabilities of language models. I can create chatbots. I can create chatbots that chain together tools. So, but that's all self-learned. And actually there wasn't, and a lot of it was vibe coded. I mean, vibe coding was like coined by Andrej Karpathy this year.
Yeah.
But a lot of my friends are like, you were the first vibe coder, like 2 years before it even worked.
It's true.
Right. And if you just scroll my Instagram, you can actually see the old videos. It's just me like making some like weird trippy design, asking for it. And then it's like, GPT taught me how to make this. Also, it wrote the whole website. Also, it just did most of the work. Yeah. I asked for it, and then here's what you get. So now a lot of times I'll get emails and it'd be like headhunters trying to hire me for CTO roles. And imagine, 2 years, imagine how much I had imposter syndrome 2 years ago because I was like, dude, I don't know the programming language. All I know is I can now make this thing.
I cannot imagine you with imposter syndrome.
It's very high, actually. Like I have very high imposter syndrome.
Really? About what though? Because you're do you see how that's in conflict with the fact that you're like, F it all, I'm just going to do my own thing. I have so much confidence and belief that this is the next thing. Like I'm going to do I'm going to put you literally put every single chip on the table.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, there are no experts, right? So that's another mantra. You got to come up with these like mantras that like you could just tell yourself in the mirror to like fight the imposter syndrome.
So what are your mantras?
There's no experts. Like the only experts right now are the people that are like actually playing with the tech. And I know this, a lot of my friends work at the Frontier Labs and they learn from me how to use the models, right? So the person that uses the tech is the one that's learning the most. Then you see a lot of talking heads, and then they have the worst perspectives because they're not playing with it. When I see you like asking AI to make you an app, that's the kind of like experimentation you need. Like I once asked AI to like GPT-4 early on. I asked, like, it was like a coding copilot that I was working on. I was like, make a list of 100 possible projects we could build in Python. And it made a list. And some of the ideas were like, it's like, write a haiku. I'm like, a program that writes haikus? Okay. And then I was like, why don't you make the first version of each of these? And then I went to sit by the pool. And
you have a pool in your building?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's LA, dude.
I don't have a pool in my building, but
yeah. And then I'm like sitting there, I'm like listening to podcasts, right? And then I got this program on my computer that's just like cranking out code. So then, and then it finishes, and then I go back and I get the code, and then I go back to the pool, and I'm just reading the code it's generated. And I was like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could build a presentation in Python, like PowerPoint and Excel or Python tools. Then I'm like, wait a minute, can you just replace all of McKinsey? Like, these are the kind of realizations I'm having.
You're sitting by the pool reviewing computer-written AI code, going, "Wait a second.
Wait.
Kill McKinsey.
Yeah.
Sell.
Sell. So like, yeah, okay. I have no idea. There's some ideas that don't need to make money, but then you have an idea like that, and you're like, wait a minute. Those guys are charging $1 million a month for like a PowerPoint presentation, unless I underestimate their role on the project. But you know what I mean?
Walk that back real quick.
Yeah. Well, it's like GPT-4 can write code and can do analysis and can build presentations, and it doesn't charge me $1 million a month. There were another project. One of the projects they tried to build was like the haiku, and this is a crazy one. It's like a program that writes haikus, and I'm thinking, how can you possibly write that as a program? The answer in my mind to this program is a language model.
Right.
It's just like just make sure put GPT in the program and be like, tell it to write a haiku.
Right.
And then it's only 12 lines of code. So it wrote a bunch of code, didn't work.
Did it use GPT?
No, but that's when I was like,
oh, I didn't know it could.
Yeah, I was like, what? This thing, I was like, the answer to this is GPT. And it's like, yeah, you're right. And I'm like, you attacked all these problems and ignored the fact that the language model exists.
Okay.
And that's like mind blowing, because I was like, okay, even I am not using this yet at the level I need to, because I need to tell it what it doesn't know. So this is like the answer to the question of like, if AI can do everything, then like, what's the point? And I was like, even if it could do everything, it's not clear to me that it will do everything. You still have to tell it what to do. And in this case, I was like, the answer to the question of like, write a program that can write haikus is to implement a language model.
Yeah.
And it not having that in the solution space told me that, oh, wow, anytime I ask it to do something, I might actually know what the right answer is, and it might be completely ignoring that. And so I need to provide that context up front. Otherwise, it's completely ignoring the most powerful tech that's ever come out.
Right. Which is a repeat problem. And you and I talked about this last night, about how it's like the issue of the fact that like models are only trained up until a certain date, that training stops. And so any new frontier technology that's come out since then, it will not know how to implement unless you RAG it, you give it additional context, you fine tune it, whatever.
Exactly. That's like the like vibe coding has great superpowers, like code generation is superpowers. Yeah. But also it's like a huge hole in its memory for the most useful, most recent technology. Yeah. And agents will solve that, like RAG techniques, like just scrape the web. Check the docs, index the docs, but it's not completely solved yet. And so, and there's more, like, I think there's more imperfection in that approach to problem solving that shows me that this is why we exist. Right. It's like to bring them to the real world, ground them in the real world more.
What question would you ask instead? What is the new right question?
How good are you at prompting the models? And I see this, like, people are freaking out, especially for coding interviews. They're like, oh, like the people are cheating. Like, they're just taking AI that already knows the answers, and then they're just like regurgitating it. There's like a lot of the people are making like interview hacking AI. Yeah. How you think about the problem is way more important than did you memorize where to put that curly bracket. Right. And the language model now makes that like the syntax obsolete. It was never about did you memorize how to write the code? It was about, can you think critically about the problem, create a solution that like brings the right code together to solve the problem. Yeah. And so my opinion is that, you got people banning AI in coding interviews, and I'm like, no, actually, I want to see your prompts. Like, show me. How did you even make this? Like, I want to see, like maybe you're transcribing. I'm like, that's a huge green flag for me. Like, you're speaking to the computer, because now I know that that like speaking is more, it's higher bandwidth. You get more across when you speak. You might or like Do you screenshot your app and then show it to the AI and then ask for feedback? Because turns out a picture is worth 1,000 words. Similarly, when you're trying to debug your app, it would help if the AI could just see your app.
Right.
But then that shows me that you understand multimodal prompting. I'll tell you, like, good prompt engineers are like, it's like spellcasting, right? They're like, it's like Leviosa, not Leviosa. Like, it's like, do you have the right combination of words? And like, do you understand how to bring the right context into the context window, whether that's images, whether that's like audio, whether that's video? Do you know what to give the model to give it the best shot at creating what you want?
Famously, I'm sure you're aware of this, all the group partners at Y Combinator, one of the most well-known accelerators in Silicon Valley, tout that despite advancements in AI coding, and that there are predictions that like 95% of the code written in 2025 is going to be written by AI, it's still very important for people to learn how to code. Do you agree?
Kind of. So it's like, why do we code? And then it's like, we're trying to build things, and coding allows us to build. It's like software is like these ideas. It's not even like atoms, right? It's like ideas represented in digital space that execute some kind of job. And code is kind of like the recipe or like the instructions we give to the computer. I think traditionally code was like, you had to memorize, it's like SQL, Python, whatever programming language, C++, C#, Java, or like front end stuff. So you had to know the language in order to get a certain thing done. SQL would allow you to do analysis. Python would let you do data science and machine learning. HTML, CSS, JavaScript allows you to build web. But each programming language has its strong suit and its weak points and has its use cases. And then the language model is actually like pretty good at all of them. And that means that you can just tell the language model in whatever language you speak what you want, and then it'll make the first version of that. And then you can ask for revisions. So actually you are like, it's not that you're not, in the past you used to have to memorize syntax, memorize blocks of code and what they did. Now you do need to know what they do if you want to debug the machine. But I think it's like, look how many people drive cars that don't know how the engine works. So it is possible that like that gets abstracted away from most people. And it doesn't mean that we won't have programmers. Actually, we'll have more programmers than ever before. It's just that they won't be coding as much as they'll be speaking in their own language to the computer and like looking at the output and being like giving it feedback. And if the computer is so smart, it should be able to translate your human instructions back into the right code. Yeah. And then, someone that understands the code more can it call the system out when it's like hallucinating, when it's making mistakes, or can guide it towards the right answer more quickly. That's where expertise comes in, and it's not unique to coding. I think if you're an expert in something, you probably have a very rich vocabulary to articulate what you want and what good looks like. Yeah. Which means that when the AI, in the same case like music, a 5-year-old asking for a song, it's like, oh, make me a song that has a trumpet, or like maybe doesn't even know the word trumpet. Yeah. And then they'll be able to articulate their vision. But then someone that's like, John Williams, did his vocabulary, he's got an orchestra, his expectations are so much higher because he has expertise, and he can articulate that with fine-grained.
I feel like we're seeing a similar moment with like marketing professionals or people who work in anything that involves the visual arts right now, because with the yesterday's drop of 4.0 image generation from OpenAI, it's like there's a bit of a melting moment in the marketing world where they're like, oh shit, and it's like, well, welcome to the game that programmers have been dealing with LLMs for the last like year and a half, basically. Yeah. It's like now your expertise is going to be the only thing that matters because no one gives a shit if you know what all those buttons on Photoshop do.
That's right. Exactly. I think it's going to apply. I can't wait to connect these language models to my digital audio workstation so I don't have to click around the computer to make music.
You're going to like burn your keyboard and mouse in a fire and just like hook up a mic and start chatting with your computer full time.
I'm at that point actually.
I believe it.
They're like, transcription is huge, and transcription has never been better than it is now. And you can get a lot more, you can say more than you can type. Yeah. I don't write as much. It's kind of like one of my downsides, but I speak a lot. And I talk to a lot of people. Yeah. And
you're a great yapper.
Yapper. Yeah. Well, it's a yapper metagame. Like,
what did you say?
It's a yapper metagame.
Oh my God.
Like yappers and ADHD. That's like the future.
Killer combo.
Like, I mean, if you're going to take Adderall to get more productive, you might as well pay for GPT-4.
Okay, that's the name of the video right there. Oh, killer. Okay, wait. Sorry. I don't want to lose this thread. When I asked you at the top of this interview, like, oh, so what do? You're like, I hack and I build things using AI. Yeah. that is descriptive of how you spend your time,
Yeah.
but it doesn't fall neatly into a category that a lot of people can be like, I have a picture in my head of what that looks like.
Yeah.
Tell me, like, when you sit down at your computer in the morning, or whenever you start your day, like, what are you literally doing on your computer every day? What programs, what applications are you opening?
I like to have a coding copilot up all the time. So for me, it's been Cursor primarily for the last like year and a half. I was very early to Cursor, but now very early to Cursor and then Replit. Replit's great because their agent is really good, and both Replit and Cursor are programming copilots, really sophisticated. And Replit agent makes it possible to deploy apps to the internet almost instantly.
Yeah.
So if you actually want to share something with your friends or publish it, you can use Replit. I usually have like 9 different messaging apps open.
Okay.
And by the time I wake up around like noon. By the time I wake up, people are already firing texts at me of like, did you see this new model? Did you see this new model? Also check this out. And for me, that's been a huge thing because you're just not going to keep up with everything yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was like me building with AI and sharing about it, created a cluster of people around me, friends, a lot of people that are just like also kind of getting into the waters.
Yeah.
And everyone's got their own thing. Like I got friends that are way better at open source than me. I got friends that are way better at video models than me. Don Allen is like my AR VR guy.
He's the best. Yeah.
He's like the new Disney. Right? Like if you imagine him having real-time native multimodal models like 2 years from now, it's like, what's going to stop him from telling like the story? So you have people that are better than you at different things. And then every once in a while you kind of like, you ping people. It's like, is this still like the best? Like people are like, oh, is that still the best coding copilot? I'm like, yeah, I think so. But that network intelligence. I think the network is so powerful, right? Like it allowed me to take the risk, but also now it's just like, I wake up with a bunch of strong signals as to like what's worth like exploring, what's worth like picking up. If 3 people are texting me about the same tool, I check that tool out.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like on that day, you know.
My thing is I refuse to touch X or Twitter with a 10-foot pole. So anything that's happening on X, like I've had friends send me screenshots and being like, hey, your thing's going viral on Twitter. And I'm like, cool, thanks for the screenshot.
Yeah.
And it's so true. Like when people ask me, oh, what's your most recommended reading source for AI? I'm like, I have my answers, but the real answer is like, my friends just text me.
People are like, oh, what podcast? And I'm like, dude, you think podcasts are... I mean, I get it. It's the podcast, you know, but moment.
We're making a podcast right now.
No, but like, it's like, you know, like, I'd rather just text a friend and be like, yo, is this good? Yeah. All right, cool.
You know, we've talked about a lot today. And one of the things that I really love and respect about you is how many layers deep you're thinking about AI, because there's kind of this first level of like tools and tips and tricks. And that's, I know a lot of the questions that you and I both get from people about AI are that it's like, what LinkedIn certification should I get to prove that I'm AI literate? And then there's the second level of like how to shift your job /station /position in the world by adapting and learning these tools on a deep level. And then I feel like there's the third level of like uprooting your preconceived notions about your identity and value and meaning and how all of that shifts based on the first 2 layers. So with all that being said, when you think about it at that third layer of depth, what are you optimizing for in your life right now? Is it money, learning, freedom, something else?
I think it's like this idea of agency. And the way a lot of people talk about it now, it's like kind of a buzzword in tech, but I think of it as like, how do you end up in a place where you have more options tomorrow than you feel like you have more options tomorrow than you did yesterday. And I think there's a lot of scarcity around AI right now. Like the idea that, oh, it's taking my job, right? It's replacing me. And it will replace a lot of jobs for sure. But on the other end of this, it's also the greatest expansion of like cognition of all time. Now you have people that like, it would be a shame if I thought of myself only as a data analyst. Now knowing what I can do, right? So I took 2 days and I just had Midjourney generate a bunch. I was like, I have a song I never put out, but it would be cool to put it out as a video, like a music video. But I don't have a label. I don't have a manager or anything. It's like, well, then AI is like, well, you got Midjourney, you got CapCut, like you could just like, and you got Runway, so you can animate the images. Also, I can help you create the world by just, so you spend two days in Midjourney. I generated like 800 pictures, turned 400 into videos, and I put my song on it. And then I put it out there, and I was kind of like, wow, like I'm not a music producer, and like I've never been like recognized in that industry. I have no audience. I have no listeners really outside of my friends, but I can make this thing now, and it previously would have taken a budget and a team. So I get to expand my own definition of self. So that's, I think this is like agency. It's like now you get to do that thing. You don't have to ask for permission. Right. You can just put the right tools together, ask AI for some inspiration. And even all these hard questions about what, like, I think like you can ask AI and it's not going to judge you. And you can be like, okay, given these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, these are the tools I have, here's what I wish I could be. Yeah. How do we get there? And you will be it's like a new form of manifestation. Right?
Do you like motivating people in this way?
Yeah.
Why?
I think like when I see someone 6 months later or a year later, like, and I see how much, when I like seeing them with increased agency.
But here's my thing is like, so I just gave a talk at a big company, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, come into our team, get everyone hyped about AI.
Yeah.
And we're going to pay you this bucket of money to do it. And I'm like, yeah, sign me up. Let's do it.
Nice.
And I get in the room.
Yapper metagame.
Sorry?
Yapper metagame.
Yapper metagame, dude. Exactly. Slap another 0 on there. Let's go.
Exactly.
So I get in the room and I'm giving this talk, and it's really interesting to me actually because in my talk I hit on a lot of the themes that you did.
Yeah.
The whole thing about like aim AI at your passion.
Yeah.
Like go all in on your interest. This is a time to like reimagine your identity, think big. Like I also talked about like AI is your motivational thought partner. Like when you're feeling down, it can be also the thing that hypes you back up again, like everything in between.
Yep.
And at the end of it, the first question that I got was, what LinkedIn certification should I be going for AI?
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to feel excited to motivate people about AI and everything that we've talked about in this conversation in the future, but I find myself having a really hard time, honestly, getting excited to talk about this subject with anyone other than people who have a perspective similar to you, or who are like complete newbies but have like a curiosity. Like I'm totally fine talking to people who are like non-technical or have no idea what's going on, but they're open and they're curious and they're like down for that. What drives me up a wall is when people are like so rigidly fixed in the current paradigm of like work and school and labor and like so pessimistic about it too, and they can only see what's directly right in front of them. We talked about like the 1, 2, 3 levels. They're max at level 1. I find it like demoralizing, and frankly speaking, like I don't want to do it for no amount of money. It's just like it's a waste of my time.
I feel the exact same. Like it's like I've been in a room full of pessimists, and I'm like, and then they're like, "What do you think?" I'm like, if I'm the only optimist you're going to invite, like I'm not going to come. And on the flip side, it's like students will ask me like, oh, how am I supposed to compete with people that have 7, 8, 10 years of experience in machine learning? I was like, don't even go for machine learning. Like maybe go for this new thing, AI engineer, whatever it is. Like it's like vibecoder. Like I see a Moon Valley had a job posting for vibecoder the other day, and I was like,
shut up.
I was like, yo,
that's so valid.
Yeah. And it's like that prompt engineering. I was like, these are the skills. And there's no textbook. It's like you want a certification. There's no certification yet. And maybe people are making them, but
they're shit.
The best certification is like share what you made.
Yeah.
Like
that part.
Someone will be like, how do I want to edit all these videos of LeBron together, but I want to have a song that's like more of like an AI song, but this is the quality. I'm like, maybe try Refusion in Suno or Udio. Next day he posts a video and it gets 1 million views, and it's like LeBron AI remix, like whatever. And I'm like, wow, see, like I gave him the right nudge, but he knew how to assemble the thing in his vision. And then the next day, now he's like, well, I'm just going to post a video every day until they win.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
and that can't be taught. I'm sorry, but it can't. People either got the hustle and grind or they don't.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing the more and more I opportunities are coming up, and I have the chance to say yes and no to what I want to work on. My biggest thing that I'm filtering for is like, how much are you actually down for this? Am I just going to be speaking to a wall, or is this message ready to be received?
I think like a lot of the corporations are not going to make it.
Yeah.
And it's because of this mindset. And a lot of times it's not even the employee's fault. Like they're not in an environment where they're allowed to even explore and experiment. And that's why like what your job is to get them to experiment outside of their work a little bit. Yeah. And not everyone has time. Some family, kids, You know, like there's so many reasons why you won't necessarily have time or energy, but you should. What happens to me is like people will come to me because they're afraid their company isn't going to make it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I can't bank on this team being my career. And Parth has already taken this like leap into the unknown. And maybe he has some answers as to like where the world is actually going. And if I prepare for that, then it's okay if I get laid off. Like, so a lot of times it's like you need that push. Like in my case, I got laid off and then it pushed me into AI.
Yeah.
But I think that's happening to a lot of people. When people lose their jobs or then they feel unsure, that usually is a moment for them to like, hopefully it's a moment for them to explore what's next.
Yeah.
And usually people realize what's next is much more fulfilling than what was before. The flip side is that I don't think you can just tell everyone to adapt. Like, I don't think everyone can, like, you're not in the right like headspace, or like maybe you have like a family and kids and you don't have that much time to put into the learning curve yourself. But in that case, like, it's like every group chat should have one AI obsessed person. And then that person is just going to bring the rest of the group up into the future with them. And I think that's like, it's like, you got to lean on your network, and you're just not alone. And I think a lot of people think that they're alone, but actually you're not actually alone. And then be a little bit more intentional about like cultivating a network that's more resistant to this than say your company, right? Like if you're only using this for your job and then you're only using it to figure out how to make money for your employer, you will probably miss like all of the beautiful things that you could also be doing that could just help you.
Yeah.
You know?
What's your dream?
My dream?
Yeah. Where do you like, if you kind of close your eyes and envision Parth and like the deep future?
I used to dream about this moment minus the AI, and I feel like I got here pretty early in my life.
What is it about here?
Well, just like, you know, living in LA, like having a decent tech job, and like kind of just like exploring some of my side interests as well. But AI has accelerated and made a lot of that possible. Like, for example, a year ago, I was at an event in Hollywood. They were talking about like AI film, and they're talking about Sora, and it was a very pessimistic conversation. And then they asked me, it's like, how do you feel about this? And I was like, am I the only optimist? Like, I feel like this is the beginning of my, it's like, yeah, maybe you're kind of, it challenges you in how you make films, whatever. Sure. Yes. I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
Yeah, not whatever. Sorry.
But I am not even in the industry, and now I get to experience it for the first time as like a creator. That was never in the cards for me. And I'm like, oh, wow, I could probably make a short film with me in it. And then I could deep fake myself into the film, play myself in a bunch of different universes. Reality destabilizing, potentially. But also, now I get to actually make the movie, deep fake myself into it, give myself the Jeff Bridges and Tron treatment. Yeah. And I was memeing that a year ago. Now it's real. So a lot of that stuff that I was like, it's like, oh, it'd be cool if one day I could do X. It happens like in 8 months. And so it's like, you asked me what my dream is. It's like, you have to dream way more and way bigger, because a lot of this stuff, the only thing, it's just happening faster. And a lot of that stuff you thought it would be nice. No, it's actually already happening. Yeah. And that's why I say play with the tech, because instead of like putting off your dream, your side project, whatever, it's like, no, actually Replit might one shot half of it in 8 seconds. Like,
yeah.
You know?
Actually, though.
And you need to internalize that, because then you're going to realize, oh, clearly I need to be dreaming bigger.
Dude, I'm telling you, people need to meditate on this technology. We have officially crossed a barrier. But most people don't even realize it. Yeah. But we've already passed the barrier that separates technology from like spirituality. Yeah. It's gone. Those planes have merged. Yeah. We're already there, and it's just the people who have literally sat down and entered the prompt into ChatGPT of like, this is my dream life that I want to have. What do I need to do to get there? Yeah. Who are like starting to chip away at that and experience it. I mean, I feel like I'm living it firsthand too. Yeah. Like literally a year ago, less than, like I was having a fucking career crisis, like rock bottom of rock bottom, being like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know where I want to go with this. Like, what's happening? Fast forward like however many months from now, and it's like 500,000 followers across platforms building ChatGPT, and it's like a lot of that is because of AI.
No, exactly. I mean, you've been your poster child of this. I see this and I'm like, holy crap! Like this is. I mean, it's going to happen for a lot of people. They'll take their time, but it will happen to a lot of people over the next couple of years, and I'm excited for it. We're early. We're very early.
Hell yeah. So Parth, where can people find you?
I'm working on a website. Well, AI is working on the website. It's not quite finished. Parth.club. Also, you can find me on LinkedIn, Parth fire emoji. And then Instagram, Substack, it's Parth Intelligence.
Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kat.